You know, we could spend a lot of time reflecting on this Brooklyn Nets season. But if somebody was to ask me, Big Perk, one word that comes to mind when you think about the fact that the Brooklyn Nets were swept in the first round of these NBA playoffs, here's the word that comes to my mind: justice. First Takes in the house. Let's go.
One of the preseason favorites to start the year, the Brooklyn Nets, and it all fell apart.
It ends like that. You start thinking about the whole year.
Still asking why.
I mean, I was out, Kev was out, James was traded. It's just a culmination of things that happened throughout our year.
A lot of stuff that happened throughout the season need to go well in order for you to be a good team. And a lot of things didn't go our way.
Big Perk, all I gotta say is Stephen A. must be a soap opera star, because that was a dramatic opening to the show. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. I'm Molly Karam. That is Kendrick Perkins, the NBA champion. And this is the one and only Stephen A. counting down till he talks about the Nets. So you're kind of in a somber mood this morning, because I'm not feeling that.
I'm not somber. I'm not somber. I just have a lot to say. I spent the evening reflecting, Kendrick Perkins, just reflecting. And I have a lot to say, but not before I hear what my man Big Perk has to say. Good morning, Molly.
Good morning. All right, let's do this. So the preseason favorites to win the title, the Brooklyn Nets, got swept on their home floor last night. KD finally looked like himself, putting up 39, 7-9, but it wasn't enough. And Ben Simmons was not on the bench after his back soreness resurfaced, had him out once again for Game 4. KD, how would you characterize this season?
No regrets. I mean, it happens. You know, no crying over spilled milk. It's about how we can progress and get better from here. We can't have no regrets on what we did. It just played out the way it played.
I felt like I was letting the team down at a point where I wasn't able to play. You know, we were trying to exercise every option for me to play, but I never wanted to just be about me. And I think it became a distraction at times. And when I say I'm here with Kev, I think that it really entails us, you know, managing this franchise together alongside Joe and Sean and just our group of family members that we have in our locker room, in our organization. You know, so it's not just about me and Kev. I don't want to make it just about that. We're cornerstones here, but you know, we have a few other guys that are on contract, and I think we just got to make some moves this offseason, really talk about it, and really be intentional about what we're building.
Big Perk, I'll start with you. How would you recap this season for the Brooklyn Nets?
Well, I mean, a complete disaster, a failure. And these interviews that Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant gave after the game, I mean, it was beyond crazy to me. And look, I know I came on here and I said I would never say anything negative about Kyrie Irving again, but right now, damn it, I can't help it. I don't know what the hell he was talking about in that interview. I mean, he was talking in circles so much I got dizzy. I mean, what are you talking about? You talking about you were a distraction. Duh. You talking about that you put your team in a bad situation, basically. Duh. We always wondering, hey, Kyrie, are you going to sacrifice? Are you going to get vaccinated? Are you going to come back? You know, your guy, Kevin Durant, he's 100% in. He needs you. He's riding with you. He has your back. He defends you all the time. When I look at this Brooklyn Nets team, from the upper part of the organization, from Sean Marks on down, it is a complete circus. It's a complete circus. No structure, no culture, no nothing. It's no accountability whatsoever. And Steve Nash, I mean, my God, what are you gonna do? The whole series, you stood around there and just stood there and looked like a damn statue. You didn't make one single adjustment. You didn't put neither one of your superstars in position to be successful. So when I'm looking at this Brooklyn Nets team, don't sit up here and say, oh, we're not gonna cry over spilled milk. Yeah, yes, we are. Yes, we are. because you cannot have two of the most skilled players to ever play the game of basketball in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, and you can't win one game. Not one game. And so it goes back to what I told Stephen A. after game one when I said Kevin Durant got punked. And then right after he got punked, guess what? The Boston Celtics not only made Kevin Durant tap out, but Marcus Smart made Kyrie Irving tap out. Marcus Smart put him in the straitjacket. He couldn't breathe. That's my takeaway. That's my recap of the Nets season.
You know, when you... I had to sit up there because I was arguing with some people last night and then some additional folks this morning, because I'm going to tell you a little secret about me covering the NBA for as long as I have and covering sports for as long as I have. I'm about brothers getting paid. I'm unapologetic about that. As much as I have had to talk about sports figures, particularly athletes, not just coaches, obviously, and executives, but athletes primarily, and what have you. If you've noticed and you've paid attention, Kendrick Perkins, most of the talking, 99% of the time, damn it, if not 100% of the time, I talk about dudes after they got their money, because I want them to get paid. I want them to get paid. We understand the society that we're living in. We understand the challenges that we face, particularly as a black community. We understand a lot of stuff that's going on, okay? We get all of that. And I want brothers to get paid. But I also want to send a message that we're about earning our money. We're about going out there and putting in that work and making sure that you understand we're going to show up. You understand? And I looked at Kyrie Irving and I looked at Kevin Durant last night. And I know that Kevin Durant is a hooper all day, every day. He don't give a damn. He want to play, want to play, want to play. And I get all of that. Did you see any pain, particularly from Kyrie Irving, Kendrick Perkins? Did you see anything that said, you know what, it really, really hurts? We just got swept. I mean, this is pretty bad. This really, really stinks. Oh, no. He was smiling on the basketball court. You know, hugging and singing Kumbaya to his former teammates in Boston and all of this other stuff. He was hugging, he was smiling. He goes up to the press conference. He's cool, he's suave. Because you know what? You got the offseason. Guess what? Kyrie Irving's got time off. Lo and behold, I mean, surprise, surprise, surprise. There's additional time off for Kyrie Irving. He don't have to work in the May. It ain't even May yet. He don't have to work in the May. He damn sure don't have to work in the June. So now he's got off May, June, July, August, September, and he's got to show up to work 6 months later, all right? 6 months later in October. And that's after having over about 50 games off this year, okay? This is what the problem is. And I look at Kyrie Irving, and what appalls me is that I have to sit up here and talk about a brother's money as if he doesn't deserve it. So I want to make sure that I'm clear with what I'm about to say to the American people out there and beyond, because we're seeing in China and other places throughout this world. Let me say this. As I've said before, Kyrie Irving is worth the money. The brother is box office. And when I say to you, I would never give him a long-term deal, I'm not implying that I wouldn't give him the money. What I'm saying is it would be an opt-out after every year if I could pull it off. You got to show up to work. Because that is at the heart of all of this. Kendrick Perkins, if Kyrie Irving was there throughout this season, do the Nets get swept in this series? I don't think so. I think everybody knows the answer to that question is no. There might be a better chance for them to win the series. I still thought they were going to win the series. There's no way in hell they get swept if they're an actual team. The problem is they're not. And when you've got a guy like Kevin Durant, who is the franchise player, we know what's inhibiting Joe Tsai, the owner. We know what's inhibiting Sean Marks, the general manager. They want to do one thing, but they know KD might be against it. You can't alienate that, brother. So he's got the franchise strapped. That is why Kyrie would utter that nonsensical drivel out of his mouth. We gonna manage. We gonna manage. Like you should be, like you're worthy of being in the room when they're planning the future of this organization. Don't you need to show up to work first? Don't you need to be a reliable commodity that they look at and they say, okay, we know this brother's going to be there? Because guess what? The Brooklyn Nets have to manage their way around the possibility that Kyrie Irving might not be available. It is shameful. It's embarrassing. It's really disheartening that it's in this situation. And what's most disheartening is that you have people out there in the NBA and outside the NBA, like that fan base in Brooklyn or what have you, that would support the inactivity of Kyrie Irving.
Perk, before you jump in here, though, Stephen A., I don't want to conflate two issues, though. Kevin Durant did look hurt to me, and I thought he handled that press conference perfectly. I don't think he could have said anything better.
No. What I'm saying is, that's why I came. If you remember, I said KD and Kyrie, and then I said Kyrie didn't look like it fazed him at all. Kevin Durant, here's the problem. Kevin Durant does care. I would never accuse him of such a thing. But you got to care enough to hold him accountable. And guess what? You can sit up there and say all the right things, but then if you go into the office and you tell Marks and you tell Josiah and them, I don't give a damn what you want, I want Kyrie Irving here, then you're handcuffing the franchise.
Molly, Stephen, let me say this. If I'm Kevin Durant, okay, I would want the hell out. I would want to get far away as possible from the Brooklyn Nets and Kyrie Irving. I would ask for a trade. And guess what? Nobody better look down on Kevin Durant, because you want to know why? The one person that has given his all since he signed with this organization
Kevin Durant.
Has been Kevin Durant. Nobody else has. Even Steve Nash. I mean, I kept waiting to see when Steve Nash is going to make an adjustment. Steve Nash, when are you actually going to do something? Steve Nash, does KD have to continuously bail you out, or are you going to help KD get bailed out of this situation that he's in right now as far as going against the defense of the Boston Celtics? I'm telling you right now, Kevin Durant deserves better. Now, could he have played better? Absolutely. But it happens. But I tell you one thing, if I'm Kevin Durant, I want to get away from this madness. I want to go somewhere where I know that a guy's going to show up to work, my counterpartner is going to be there 100% of the time. I don't have to guess what he's thinking. I don't have to guess if he actually is fully committed. I don't want to guess if off-the-court activities or brotherhood or social justice means a lot more to him than the game of basketball. And I'm not knocking that about Kyrie Irving. Because here's the thing, too. Let me address something about this quote-unquote NBA brotherhood, okay? See, the NBA brotherhood is some real brothers out there, but then there's some other brothers who just use that brotherhood term when it's convenient for them. Okay, they only want to be part of the brotherhood when it's convenient for them. Now, they do have some real ones, but on the other side, they do have a whole lot of fake ones. But at the end of the day, my point is right now, if I'm Kevin Durant, I'm getting the hell out. Kevin Durant deserves better.
But
this
Perk,
is a guy that
realistic?
has.
Well, it's not. Well, let me say this. Kevin Durant is under contract for the next several years.
Yeah.
Here's where I disagree with Kendrick Perkins. Yeah, you can ask out. Why do that when it's much easier for you to sit up there and say, I want him out? Think about it. We know he's not going to do it. But what I'm saying to you is, listen, it's the same thing, because the bottom line is, if you want to get away from Kyrie Irving, why do you need to relocate? I got faith in Josiah. I got faith in Sean Marks. I got faith in the Brooklyn Nets organization. What I'm saying is, if you got Kevin Durant and he's saying, excuse me, I want cats here who are all in all the time because we're trying to win a chip, then that to me is easier than him relocating.
But
you got to find a partner. You got to find the right deal. How do you get equitable compensation for the greatness of Kevin Durant? I don't know if you can pull that off.
But let me ask you a question, Stephen A. Where was Kevin Durant supposed to be anyway? You come on here and you tell me, okay.
Knicks.
So do you honestly believe that Kevin Durant's heart is in Brooklyn? Kevin Durant is in Brooklyn because Kyrie wanted to be in Brooklyn. And so he wanted to play with Kyrie, so obviously he went there because the quote-unquote brotherhood. So what I'm saying is that we know that his heart is not in Brooklyn. His heart may be with Kyrie, but it's not committed to the Brooklyn organization.
What I'm saying, I'm only addressing your point about him leaving. I'm saying, if you're saying, Kendrick Perkins, he should want to get the hell out of Brooklyn and the hell away from Kyrie Irving. My point is that it's easier for the Nets. to part ways with Kyrie.
And who they gonna get back? Who's gonna take? Let me ask you a question.
Well, that is a good damn question.
What team in the NBA is gonna take Kyrie Irving at this moment? Honestly, Stephen A. What team in the NBA that you know that's gonna take a chance on Kyrie Irving, not knowing if he's gonna be available for work?
Well, he is approaching the last year of his contract, so there's always somebody. Like we say with Russell Westbrook, who's over $47 million next season. There is somebody that might want that money off their cap. Now, if Kyrie had a long-term deal, then the answer would be no one would want to take that chance at this particular juncture. But with him approaching the last year of his deal, there's somebody you could find.
Yeah, but the difference between Russell Westbrook and Kyrie Irving is that Russell Westbrook just had a bad season. Russell Westbrook is always going to show up to work.
Always showing up to work. Always shows up to work.
Whether he's making 47 or 57, Russell Westbrook is going to show up to work, so you can actually take a chance because you could release the money the following year, but you know that 1 year, he's going to show up to work and give it his all. We don't know that about Kyrie Irving. See, and that's the problem. You don't know what Kyrie Irving's head is right now. And listen, even but listen, here it is, Stephen A. Even if Kyrie if his head is in a space where he wants to be heavily involved in the community or anything to do with social justice or things to that nature, guess what? I'm not looking down on him. All I'm saying is make it very, very clear what side of the fence that you're standing on. Let us know if you're fully committed 100% to the game of basketball. That's all. And look, here's another thing. I saw frustration in Kevin Durant. I saw frustration. And not just because of the Boston Celtics defense, but Kevin Durant had to deal with a lot this season. Kevin Durant had to deal with Kyrie not showing up. Kevin Durant had to pull the trigger of trading James Harden and getting back Ben Simmons, another guy who we question is committed to the game of basketball. And Kevin Durant get into this part of the season, and all of a sudden, because of Kyrie religion, which I'm not looking down on, he's fasting at this point. Wouldn't you be mentally exhausted if you was Kevin Durant?
Well, I think he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but here's my question to you. Let's do this thought experiment. So say Kevin Durant goes, it's realistic, he can get out of his deal, and he's going to go. So where do you go, Perk? What's the right situation for him? Because now he went to Golden State. Now he wanted to create his own super team rather than join one.
I tell you what, I wouldn't mind seeing them play alongside LeBron James. I wouldn't mind him taking his talent to the Los Angeles Lakers.
That would never happen. You know
I'm just telling you.
Yeah, that would never happen. Never.
I would never say never.
No. Okay.
Let's keep it going here, guys. So the Warriors remain atop the favorites to win it all with their 3-1 series lead over the Nuggets. The Celtics have climbed to second through following the sweep of KD, Kyrie, and the Nets, and Phoenix hanging in there in third, even in Booker's absence. So where do the Celtics rank amongst the NBA's best teams right now, Stephen A.?
Me personally, I got them right now as the best team in the Eastern Conference. That's how I feel about them because of the way they play defense collectively. That's where I'm at with it. I understand the presence of Giannis Antetokounmpo and how he can neutralize anything or nullify anything. I also am watching Miami, and quietly, we all know I'm rooting for the Miami Heat. I mean, it ain't quiet no more. I'm just not denying it. I'm rooting for the Miami Heat, okay? I'm rooting for the Miami Heat. That's where I want to be in June and May. I want to be because we got the Eastern Conference Finals. ESPN has the Eastern Conference Finals this year. So, damn it, I'm not apologizing. I want Miami to win. But the bottom line is that when you look at Boston and the way they play defense collectively, along with the emergence of a Jason Tatum, with a Jaylen Brown and what have you, they made me a little bit nervous last night once Jason Tatum fouled out from that game. I'm just of the mindset that when you really, really look at it right now, because of the way Boston plays defense, because you got two dudes that can give you a bucket, because of the defensive wizardry of Marcus Smart and the coaching of Udoka, I'm just of the mindset that right now, I shouldn't say coaching because even though I love Udoka a lot, I love me some Eric Spoelstra as well, who I consider to be one of the best in the game. But the bottom line, I think right now, if somebody said to me, who you rolling with, it would be Boston. I'm hoping Miami, though.
Well, Boston is the best team in the NBA. Let's make that very, very
in the NBA.
clear. in the NBA. You heard what I
please.
said.
That is not true.
NBA.
When did you decide that? In all seriousness, I'm not messing with you.
No, really, because Molly, think about this. You remember we were on the show and I said that I would pick Boston to be my favorite. But the only reason that I didn't was because of the injury of Robert Williams. But what the Celtics have shown me is no other team in the NBA that's in the postseason that would have swept and did what they just did to the Brooklyn Nets. That's how great they are defensively. And I know we keep talking about how good or how much of a juggernaut Golden State the Warriors are. But still in all, offense win you games, defense win you championships. And when I look at these guys as far as their defensive lineup, it's no other team that have the perimeter defenders like the Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum right now is the best two-way player in the game. Jaylen Brown, we know how he locks down defensively. And don't get me started on Marcus Smart and what he could do to a person. And then you have Big Al Horford, Robert Williams, Grant Williams, and Daniel Tice, who all are defensive-minded people and are capable of sliding those puppies. So when I look at this Celtic team, I'm looking at their defense and I'm saying, who want to face them? Who can't they stop? Go look at the season series when they played against the Miami Heat. I think the Celtics was up 3-1 in that season series. Look, Jason Tatum is a top 3 player in the NBA. This mean version of Jason Tatum, nobody wants to see. And Jaylen Brown playing with a chip on his shoulder, the way that both of them are coexisting on the offensive end, nobody wants to see this team, bro, because nobody would have ever exposed Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving like these brothers exposed them. Not one team that's in the playoffs would have swept this Brooklyn Nets team but the Boston Celtics.
I disagree. I think the Golden State Warriors would have swept them.
They ain't sweep Denver.
So what? I mean, listen, first of all, the altitude in Denver, certainly that's number one. Number two, they sat up there and they took for granted because they knew they had them and what have you. We got all of that. That stuff happens.
Excuses.
All right, Jokic, 36 and 36 plus. I mean, we know what they bring to the table. The point that I'm trying to make, I didn't sit up there and say, excuse me, you got to remember, basketball character, Denver showed it. What did Coach Malone say after they lost game 3? He said, yo, we going to find out what we made of. You going to fight or you going to just lay down and let this season come to an end? You going to fight or what? And Denver stood up because they got that kind of basketball character. Let's give credit where credit is due. We'd be talking a lot more about Denver's Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. were healthy, okay? We'd be talking a lot more about them. They got 2 of their 3 stars injured. That's the reality of the situation. But you look at Barton and Morris and all these guys, they're not scrubs. They're not stars, but they're not scrubs. I know you didn't say that, but I'm saying they're not stars, but they're not scrubs. They can play. And, they got a lot of heart. They ain't scared, and they go out there, and they going to fight you, all right? And that's what they did in Game 4. I'm telling you, it's not about you're looking at Brooklyn from a talent perspective. I'm looking at Brooklyn from a character perspective. When you talk about nobody else would have beaten them, I say nobody else would have swept them. I say otherwise. And I say otherwise because we've had questions about the collective character, and it's not to knock any player specifically outside of Kyrie and Ben Simmons. We understand that they're dealing with a lot. But in the end, because of the distractions both have caused throughout this season, they have been a dysfunctional bunch in Brooklyn. And I think they could have been had once they lost game 1. You just saw things just snowball from there.
Yeah, you know why it snowballed from there? Because of the Celtics and their tenacity and their defense, because they knew they was outmanned. Stephen A.
You also brought up Kyrie. You brought up Kyrie and how obviously he was going, he's fasting and all of that stuff, so the level of energy he didn't have. You brought that stuff up. You brought up some of the things. We know what the Ben Simmons story is. You know that.
Yeah, but Stephen A., guess what? It ain't too many Marcus Smarts on the other teams. This is the defensive player of the year. That's why it hurt Kyrie Irving. Yeah, he was faster, but it's not a dog like a Marcus Smart. You know what I'm saying? Like I told you before. Hey, man, you throw Marcus Smart in the cage with 5 lions, you know what you go get? 6 lions.
6 lions.
You 6 lions. Because that's the type of heart that he plays with. That's the type of dog that he is. But, Stephen A., this is what I want to tell you. Kevin Durant is a two-time champion, two-time Finals MVP.
Correct.
Kyrie Irving is a champion.
Yes, he
Kyrie
is.
Irving is battle-tested. Kyrie Irving hit one of the greatest shots in Finals history. Okay, Kyrie Irving was down 3-1. I don't think you could understand. I don't think you're understanding that the Boston Celtics made Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving quit. They made them quit. They made them quit, Stephen A. Quit. Well, they didn't even want to play no more. They were shying away from the basketball, going hide in the corner. No other team has the perimeter play on the defensive side of things to make a Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant quit. No other team.
What you're missing, Kendrick Perkins, is you're thinking the Boston Celtics made them quit. One could argue they quit a long time before the playoffs arrived. Maybe not as an individual player like Kevin Durant, but when you look at all the nonsense that was taking place this year, the reality of the situation is you could make that argument that they've been planning their vacation.
Yeah, but I can't say that because they fought so hard to get into the play-in tournament and then win the play-in games. So that's why I can't roll with that. Because they fought so hard to get to that point.
Okay.
Big Perk, let me ask you this. What did you think of the fact that Ben Simmons didn't show up?
Man, Molly, I don't know if you into social media a lot and
I'm not.
be on Twitter. Okay, cool.
I'm not into
yesterday
any of
on yesterday on NBA Today, I said that Ben Simmons is that pretty girl that's single, and everybody's wondering why she's single because she smokes cigarettes. That's who Ben Simmons is, the single girl that smokes cigarettes. Newport shorts at that.
What?
I don't even know. I need a couple minutes.
Hold on, let me ask you that. I need clarification.
marinate
I
on
need
that.
clarification. What does the smoking cigarette part have to do with it? I mean, can you explain that?
Because it's like this here, Stephen A. Everybody see Ben Simmons and they say, oh, this is who he is. He's his upside, and he has the physique, the body, the athleticism. But we don't know if he loved the game of basketball. So my thing is that when he goes to the organization, like when he goes to an organization and things to that nature, people start realizing who the hell Ben Simmons is. Like, for example, the Brooklyn Nets, when they pulled the trigger, they wonder why the Philadelphia 76ers didn't want that pretty girl no more. They got him, and then they realized, I don't want him. This is why. He come up with an excuse. Yes, he has the physical talent and the physical gifts, but he don't love the game of basketball.
That is
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, I just want to be clear on one thing. So I get the pretty girl, I get the Newport shorts kind of.
Newport cigarettes.
Yes,
Molly.
I get it. I get it. I don't know how to call it. I never smoked cigarettes. Okay, whatever. I get all that part.
All right.
But this is what I want to ask. When yesterday we sat here, who were we with? Jay Will and Tim Legler, and everyone kind of crushed Ben Simmons, his outfits. He's standing in front of the camera where he sat on the bench. He's clapping, trying to be on TV, kind of becoming a sideshow, how he's walking and et cetera. So then he chooses not to come last night, but you think that was the wrong decision?
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. Every time that we try to address or it's time for Ben Simmons to get held accountable, guess what Ben Simmons do? He hide. So when y'all addressed him yesterday and everybody around the world was addressing him yesterday, what did Ben Simmons do? When people were talking about him sitting on the bench, clapping his outfits, what happened? He hid in the back in the locker room. That's what he do. When adversity hits, he hides.
Let me tell you this. I'll get into Ben Simmons a little bit later because the one and only Mr. Jamie Foxx went on social media and clapped at me about my position on Ben Simmons. I'm going to save what I got to say to address Mr. Jamie Foxx in just a few minutes. I'll wait for that.
Okay.
I'll wait for that.
Fair enough. We can leave it there, but wanted to get Big Burke's take on the record.
Yes.
All right, guys, when we come back here on First Take, the Raptors take a 3-2 series lead in Philly. Is James Harden a liability? We take a look at this. King James showing some love to J.J. Redick on Friday night. Okay, J.J., we see you showing the range. Love hearing J.J. Redick on the game. Smart Insightful dude. I agree with that. Low-key, high-key funny. I'll give you low-key funny. I don't know about high-key yet.
I don't understand. Am I both low-key and high-key funny?
Yeah.
Or am I one or the other? I think I'm more low-key funny. There's a subtle sarcasm.
I'll give you low-key funny. I'm not going to go high-key.
Embrace it, my brother. It shows your versatility.
No, I love that.
Just roll with it.
That was
Just
very
roll
nice of LeBron to tweet that out and acknowledge me calling the Hawks and Heat game on Friday night. I appreciated that. I appreciate that.
Well, listen, he knows his basketball. You know your basketball, so it's all good.
All right. We'll keep it rolling here, guys. Philly is where we're going to pick things up. Took a 15-point L on their home floor as Toronto claws back into the series, now only down 3-2. And that was without Fred VanVleet. Joel Embiid dealing with a thumb injury, scored 20. And James Harden still not putting up the numbers needed, 15, 2, and 7. Joel Embiid was asked about James Harden's struggles.
I've been saying all season since he got here, he just needs to be aggressive and he needs to be himself. That's not really my job. That's probably on coach to, talk to him and tell him to, take more shots, especially if they're gonna guard me the way they've been guarding. That's really not my job.
All right, Game 6 in Toronto on Thursday. Big Perk. Has Harden become a liability?
He has, and I think we all need to come to realization that James Harden game is on the decline right before our very eyes. Because if you look around the NBA and you look around this particular series right now, this game comes down to your superstars leading the way and getting buckets. It's no schemes. It's no offensive sets. It's nothing that you can run. It comes down to high pick and roll, getting the switch, and your superstars taking you home. We watched Giannis do it. We watched Luka do it last night. We watched Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown do it. The fact of the matter is this. James Harden doesn't have the explosiveness no more. James Harden can't get to the basket like he used to get to the basket. James Harden can't even create enough separation to get his three-point shot off anymore. This is James Harden, and this is who he is, and I think we have to accept that. And yes, he has become a liability for the Philadelphia 76ers, because if you look at their 3 wins, it wasn't on the back of James Harden. It was on the back of Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. And we can't continue to ask Tyrese Maxey to bring this team home and not hold James Harden accountable, but James Harden just don't have it no more. And offensively, he's a liability for the Philadelphia 76ers.
So much of Tyrese Maxey's success in those first 2 games were because of the attention they paid to James Harden. They were sitting in the gaps at the nail on every ISO. How many times do we see over the first 2 games just a quick swing pass to Maxey, or he's got a lineup 3, or he's able to attack a closeout? James Harden is not a liability, Perk. Is James Harden the same player that we saw in Houston or pre-hamstring injury in Brooklyn? No, he's not. So I think our view of who James Harden is has to change. Liability is the wrong word. James Harden is still a very effective playmaker and facilitator. He averaged over 10 assists a game while he was in Brooklyn this year. While he was in Philly, he's averaging over 9 in this series. In the 21 games he played for the Sixers this year, on-off net rating, they're almost 14 points better with him on the court. Here's my worry on this, though. Let's say the Sixers get by the Raptors. Against the Miami Heat, he's going to be faced with Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker. It's a lot of the same of what we're seeing in this series, big two-way wings. I don't know who needs to hear this, by the way, because it's not on the docket. It's not on the docket for today. But Jimmy Butler has been the best player in these playoffs. When we look at points added on offense, Jimmy Butler first. Points saved on defense, Jimmy Butler second to Giannis. He has been far and away, through 4 or 5 games in every series, he's been far and away the best player in these playoffs.
But what about, what about his matchup, though, compared to
Some of it is that. Some of it is Matt. But I said this last week. The Heat match up well against the Sixers because of what I talked about. They've got depth. They've got a switching 5 in Bam Adebayo. With a hobbled Joel or an injured Joel not being at 100%, and James Harden unable, because this is a trend, unable to score efficiently, even if Philly gets by this series, they're in a lot of trouble against the Miami Heat.
Yeah, but we're talking about the now.
You said liability is the wrong word, though. Liability is the wrong word. He's not I've been a liability on defense before. Liability is the wrong word.
No, actually, the liability is the right word because James Harden is struggling to actually get 20 points, J.J. Redick. And with Joel Embiid being injured, James Harden doesn't have the capability of taking over the game anymore offensively. I don't care about the facilitating. The assisting don't ring a bell to me right now. That don't just elevate. That's not what the James Harden that the 76ers need right now. Because of Joel Embiid being injured, that means, yes, he is a liability because he can't close or take over the game. So how is that not being a liability if you can't take over the game?
Well, I'm with JJ on this in terms of the word liability because just because you can't take over the game doesn't make you a liability. When I think of liability, I think Ben Simmons. That's what I think. That's apropos. That's kind. That's entirely too kind a word liability when it comes to a Ben Simmons. And considering the franchise that he came from, which is the Philadelphia 76ers, I mean, Harden is heaven because guess what? At least he's on the court, all right? But I get where you're coming from, Perk. Here's the deal. You and JJ Redick, especially you, JJ, are we really, really going to sit here and act like we don't suspect what's going on? James Harden has not been the same since his hamstring. Fair enough. James Harden looks like he lost a step. He ain't the same player that he was in Houston, just like KP just highlighted. Check. Obviously so. Let me give y'all these numbers. Last 9 games or so during the regular season, 5 games during the playoffs. 2 for 11, 9 of 17, 4 of 15, 4 of 10, 4 of 13, 4 of 10, 3 of 12, then a slide 7 to 16 in there, all right, for game 1 of this series. 6 of 17 since game 1. 3 of 9, 7 of 13, 5 of 17, 4 of 11. Now, is James Harden really that bad? Has he really lost that much of a step, J.J. Redick? Or is it that you wanted to get out of Houston, so you got to Brooklyn, and then when you got to Brooklyn, you really wanted to get to Philly, and so obviously you told Steve Nash one thing, you do another, you end up getting out the door, which is what you really wanted, because we know what he's willing to do, and now you in Philly, and all these rumors are circulating that if things don't work out, Doc Rivers going to be gone, and Mike D'Antoni's going to be in there. Who wants Mike D'Antoni as the coach? We all know. Daryl Morey's one of them. James Harden's another. Is that going to happen if James Harden is looking all world? Is that going to happen if Philadelphia is winning? If that's going to happen, if
wait a second. What are you suggesting? James Harden, after wanting that trade, isn't playing well to get a new coach?
What I'm saying to you is this. James Harden, you could talk about he's struggling all you want to. All I'm saying is, can we ask the question, is he really this inefficient? I've never seen it. Can y'all explain to me? Can you truly explain? Can you truly explain that? So in other words, all those numbers that I threw out there, and again, I'm not trying to sit up there saying the brother playing bad on purpose. What I'm saying to y'all is this. When you are devoid of the passion and the enthusiasm to do something, does it not affect y'all play? Y'all played. I'm asking.
Stephen A., listen, man. James Harden game is on a decline right now offensively. He's not the same James Harden of old. He can't get by people. He doesn't have the explosiveness. He doesn't have enough stuff in him to even create his sidestep three-point shot. Like at this moment of time, you need James Harden to elevate. Let me tell you the worst thing that happened for the Philadelphia 76ers. Fred VanVleet got hurt. And I'm going to say this, and I say this respectfully, because now when you look at the lineup that Nick Nurse put out there, guess what? You got 6'4", 6'6", 6'7", 6'10", 6'10". And so they're switching everything. And they athletic. So now all of a sudden when James Harden gets to go in isolation at the top of the key, he is not getting by anybody no more. And the world knows this. So, Stephen A., you going to sit up here and act like we didn't really know the truth of what was going on with Kyrie Irving and James Harden before he got traded? You didn't go to the Brooklyn Nets game and saw Kyrie Irving pick up James Harden full court because he know that James Harden is losing it. He don't have it no more. Man, listen, if y'all go sit up here and defend James Harden and say that he's not a liability right now for the 76ers, I feel sorry for y'all loss.
Perk, I just want to say one thing about Fred VanVleet. I'm not going to let you slander his defense.
I did not slander his name. I said respectfully. I said not because of what he
you
brings up.
insinuated that he's not even a good defensive player. He's actually a great defensive player. He's a great defensive. I realize he doesn't have the size, but he has been a great defensive player over the last few seasons. On the Harden front, Stephen A., I strongly disagree with your notion here because James Harden is motivated. The idea that he's not fully invested or something and doesn't want to play well because he's not passionate. He's got a lot of money on the line. He's well aware of the discourse around his playoff history and the fact that he hasn't won a championship. Maybe, as Perk said, maybe it's okay just to admit that he's got a lot of miles on his body. He had a serious hamstring injury. He hasn't fully recovered. He hasn't been himself physically, and he's not the same player. It doesn't have to do with any underlying
Or maybe he's just a great regular season player, like a Peyton Manning.
See, this is the crazy part. This is when I have to go into my bag, and I hate it. You know who I was on the phone with last night? I was on the phone with Sam Cassell, okay? And if you don't know who Sam Cassell is, he's sitting about 3 seats down from Doc Rivers. He's an assistant coach for the Philadelphia 76ers. He's a 3-time world champion, all that above. Sam, I am. Sam Cassell told me, and it's the reason that I sat up here and tried to come on here and tell y'all that he told me the worst thing that could have happened for them was the size and the length, and no disrespect to Fred VanVleet, but James Harden struggles with the size and the length of those guys on the perimeter. And so what I'm saying is, listen, JJ, here's the thing. All I'm telling you is...
I'm telling you that Sam is wrong because this isn't a one-game thing that James Harden all of a sudden shot 4 for 11 last night because Fred VanVleet wasn't in the game. This is weeks of this, Perk. Come on. Sam doesn't know what he's talking about. I love Sam, but that's wrong. That's wrong.
Sam don't know what he's talking about.
Hold on.
I love Sam. He's wrong on that.
Sam got 3 championships, JJ. Sam don't know what he's talking about.
No. Well, he was just talking about that one point, Kendrick Perkins. That's all. Just like people will sit up there and grab one point you make and try to generalize it. All right. JJ Redick disagrees with that one point. That's all he was saying.
Yes, correct.
That's all he was saying. The point that I'm trying to make to y'all is this: James Harden was so electrifying as an offensive player that he could have slippage and not look as pedestrian as he's looked over the last few weeks. Are we not going to ask why? Yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm the only person that's sitting there. I mean, we all notice what the drop-off has been like. We know that it was existing before this Toronto series, before Fred VanVleet went down, before he had 6'10" cat switching on him, before all of that. We were watching. We were here on First Take, Kendrick. We were here on First Take, JJ, talking about the slippage. We also talked about the aspirations that the reports are go throughout the NBA community of Daryl Morey wanting Mike D'Antoni and James Harden wanting Mike D'Antoni. Now we hear Joel Embiid at a press conference talking about how, well, I don't know that area, but you got to let James play his game and all of that other. Where that coming from? We going to sit up here and act like, you know what, Stephen A. is just in the clouds. I'm just in the clouds here. We watching the guy play. We know what he's capable of, even with slippage. We know what he's capable of. Even with the hamstring injury, even with going to Brooklyn, the brother turned into a triple-double and was an MVP candidate last year. Even with his game changing and him not being what he was in Houston, we didn't see this. So, Kendrick, I'm not disagreeing with you. And, JJ, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying there's a different component. And mark my words, because we see, this is the beauty of the position that I'm in. We hear all of these reactions, and then weeks or months down the road, it's like, damn. It damn sure looks that way now. Damn. It makes sense. I'm not trying to sit up there and say he's lackadaisical or anything like that. I'm saying the slippage has been so dramatic. Yep. It's not James Harden-like.
But when has he been great in the playoffs? That was the indictment going in. So
Molly.
Hold on, let me say one thing.
But I brought it up before what is happening before the playoffs.
But that is insinuating that he wants to lose to get a new coach.
No, it's not.
Joel Embiid didn't have a great game last night either.
It's not about losing. It's about a coach putting you in positions that you may not necessarily agree with. So you're going to go out there and give your best. But when things don't work out, you in the locker room afterwards talking about, I should be in a better position. Why would JJ Redick, you're a former teammate of Joel Embiid. Tell me one time, Kendrick Perkins, tell me one time y'all have heard Joel Embiid go into a post-game. He didn't even do that when it was Brett Brown. Am I lying?
He didn't do that with who?
Brett Brown. He didn't even do that with Brett Brown. I'm talking about in the press conference.
You mean him addressing Harden?
There was multiple times he did it with Brett Brown, and I talked to Joel about this. The Christmas Day game in 2018.
Okay.
He talked about Brett Brown in the press conference and how he didn't like the offense we were running.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about when you're talking on behalf of another player.
Yeah, but Stephen A., now you're taking it out of context because he said the question was asked to him, why is James Harden not being aggressive? And he said, I've told him that a few times. The coach need to tell him to be more aggressive, I guess. That's all he's saying. And listen, when you talk about, here's the thing, let me correct you on something. When you talk about putting a guy in position to be successful, tell me, what the hell do you want Doc Rivers to do?
No, I don't have a problem with what Doc Rivers is doing.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, the same. What system can you possibly run? James Harden has the ball in his hands. James Harden is initiating the offense. James Harden has.
I agree.
Okay, so it's not like Doc Rivers sitting up here running sets.
No, I'm bringing it up because of what Joel Embiid said. I'm saying to you, and not only that, the report, Kendrick Perkins, we talked about this. We like, where the hell are these reports coming from? Keep in mind, well, let me remind y'all, I worked in Philly for 17 years. These people, and it's not an accident. That these headlines are coming.
JJ Perk, you're coming back. We're up against it. Let me get into a quick commercial break here. We can come back to everything. Don't worry. That was a lot there. When we come back here on First Take, Jamie Foxx took issue with the Ben Simmons convo here on First. Give it up. JJ called it. The preseason favorite to win the title, the Brooklyn Nets, got swept on their home floor last night. KD finally looked like himself, putting up 39, 7, and 9, but it wasn't enough, and Ben Simmons was not on the bench after his back issues resurfaced, and a lot of scrutiny around first-year head coach Steve Nash. Here's KD on the head man and Hall of Famer.
Steve's been dealt a crazy hand the last 2 years. He's had to deal with so much stuff as a head coach, first-time coach, and trades, injuries, COVID, just a lot of stuff he had to deal with. And I'm proud of how he just focused and his passion for us. And, we all, continue to keep developing over the summer and see what happens.
Okay, JJ Redick, you were very right. They didn't win a series. Challenged you on that. And there's that. But now let's get to Nash. Does he deserve to lose his job after what just went down?
No, I don't think so. And what Kevin brought up, I think, is important because it provides some context about the disappointment surrounding the Brooklyn Nets. If we go back to last year, first of all, Kevin Durant's coming off an Achilles injury. They start out the season with depth. Spencer Dinwiddie tears his ACL. Kyrie goes on sabbatical. They bring in James Harden. He hurts his hamstring. Kyrie sprains his ankle. We go to this year. Harden wants out. Kyrie's unavailable. They make the trade. Ben's unavailable. On top of all that, and this is the most important part, and it's what I brought up 10 days ago, whenever that was, that clip was, this team is severely lacking in two-way depth, and Ben Simmons could have helped a little bit with that. But when we look at the Boston Celtics, they're a team full of two-way players. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, Marcus Smart, Grant Williams. You go down the line, a lot of those guys were drafted by the Celtics. There is homegrown talent. And so the Nets' failure this season, the Lakers' failure this season, there's a little bit of a cautionary tale here on team building. Because if you have a top-heavy roster with 2 or 3 guys, it is very difficult to build out a competent, complete roster if you don't draft well. And the Nets, of course, were hurt by the trade they originally made with the Celtics some years ago. But that, to me, is the bigger story here than Nash, is this roster, as constructed, was not going to win a championship. No matter what Vegas said or no matter what people said about Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, basketball is a team sport, and the more complete team here was clearly the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, fair enough about Boston. But when it comes to Steve Nash, you're wrong. And here's what I would like to preface my comments by highlighting. Years ago, Don Shula was pushed out the door as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. He ultimately retired or whatever. Tom Landry was pushed out when Jerry Jones bought the team and Jimmy Johnson was brought in as the head coach. People are appalled. And you know what my response was at the time? Do we say anything when players are moved? Players get cut. Players don't get re-signed. Players get let go all the time. What is it about us as a society that we can't sit up there and look at a coach and just say, you're not the guy for this job? It doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be employed. It doesn't mean that you don't deserve to be a paycheck. It doesn't mean that you should be excoriated or whatever. It just means that for this particular situation, you're not that guy. Just with Frank Vogel just now. We all know, J.J. Redick, it wasn't Frank Vogel's fault. The Lakers assembled the roster that they assembled. They put these guys together. They wouldn't give, according to Frank Vogel and his peeps, the opportunity to really, really coach. Now, the Lakers, in fairness to them, would refute such things. But these are the kind of things that were said. He would have dealt with Russell Westbrook a hell of a lot earlier, blah, blah, blah. Fine. Okay, forget all of that for a second. We go to Steve Nash. I like Steve Nash. And I think that Steve Nash will get better and better and better as a coach if this is something he truly, truly wants to do. But you know what we don't say enough about Steve Nash? He never deserved the job. Only because he never had any coaching experience on any level at all. Now,
so hold on.
Because before you asked me about Steve Kerr.
Well, I just want to say one thing. I want to ask you one thing, and then I'll let you go on.
Sure.
I just want to be clear on this point.
Yeah.
Are you saying that a head coach, should never be hired unless he's had coaching experience prior? Is that what you're saying?
I feel that way about a championship caliber team.
Okay, so Steve Kerr won a championship as a first-year head coach.
Yes.
And we go down the line, like Doc Rivers, no experience. Derek Fisher, no experience. There's a bunch of guys that have been hired.
Right.
Doc Rivers, of course, has had an incredible coaching career.
Okay.
I'm wondering why, though.
Because when I looked at Steve Kerr, my position with Steve Kerr is that Mark Jackson deserved to keep that job, but that's Warriors management decision. But then beyond that, Steve Kerr was a general manager in Phoenix. Steve Kerr had something to do with building a roster. From an organizational perspective, he had some degree of experience. Steve Nash did not.
That's two different things. Building a roster out and coaching a basketball team.
I understand, but what I'm saying to you is that I'm looking at the responsibility of leadership more so than anything else. You may not have had it. You may not, and that was my reservation about Steve Nash. But we fast forward because Steve Nash is a good dude. I'm happy for him. On a personal level, I'm happy for him because he's a really good guy. But you get this job through no fault of his own. This is a cesspool. And so when I look at him, here's my point, and I'm glad we're addressing this question. Because to me, it's not that he should be gone. because that's the impression that I gave yesterday, and I didn't mean to give it. It was either or. He has to go, or Kyrie does. You can't keep this same bunch together and Steve Nash there too. You got to have a coach that's going to bring the hammer down, that's going to coach these brothers, okay? Or you got to have a situation where he's not there and there's a coach that's brought in, or if Steve Nash is going to be there, you can't have the same dysfunction that's ravaged this franchise. 247 scheduled games. Kyrie and KD and Kevin Durant had available to them. They played 58 games together. 58. And they clearly said, we don't need Kyrie, not they, Kyrie. We don't need a coach. They clearly gave indications, well, you know something? We all right, we coach ourselves. You can't have that. And with a coach that's a short, and you played for a Doc Rivers. You know about the Larry Browns, the Phil Jacksons, the Pat Rileys, the Greg Popovich, and some of the great coaches, the Jeff Van Gundy's, the others. You know you could never get away with the nonsense. You can't do it. There's going to be structure. There's going to be accountability. And the fact that that is a question, I'm not questioning the X's and O's. Yeah. I'm saying the fact that that is a question mark, either one of those players, either a guy like Kyrie got to go, or Steve Nash got to go.
So I
can't keep it the same.
All valid points. I have one comment. I disagree with you on the leadership aspect.
Okay.
Steve, I played against Steve. He was a little bit prior to my generation, in my era, but I played against him. He was widely regarded as one of the best leaders in the NBA as a player.
That is true.
Okay, widely regarded.
That is true.
And if you talk to D'Antoni, you talk to Kerr, you talk to any of his team,
they all say that.
They all say that.
They all say that.
Widely regarded as one of the greatest leaders. In terms of accountability, and this is just going back to my experience as a player.
Okay.
Yes, there are coaches who do a good job of holding players accountable. Accountability is an organizational thing. It is not solely reliant upon the head coach. It's reliant upon the front office, ownership. So if people have empowered Kyrie to behave a certain way, that doesn't fall on Steve Nash to hold him accountable. It doesn't.
I'm not saying.
It doesn't. And hold on, and then I'll let you talk. So my question to you in all of this, because I think you're making great points. My question to you in all of this is who? Because I brought up the context of his 2 years as a head coach. And my question to you is who over the last 2 years could have done a better job given all of that? Is there a coach? You don't even name a name. Is there a coach?
I don't know.
He was dealt a bad hand, Stephen A.
My fairness to you and to Steve Nash is I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Now, let me finish.
Okay.
When you talk about organization, I don't disagree. What I'm trying to say, it has to be the kind of coach that has the kind of personality. Oh, I'm going to run this team the way that I want to run this team, or I'm up out of here. You're not getting away with letting this dude do what he wants to do. I'm talking about a coach with the cachet that enables him not just to hold the players accountable, but to some degree the organization accountable for letting the coach do his job. Everybody talked about they were sorry defensively, they were this, they that. I don't even hold those things against Steve Nash. I'm saying that Steve Nash's cachet or lack thereof doesn't put him in a position to say to Sean Marks and Joe Tsai and them, excuse me, this is what needs to happen.
So your issue is not that he has no experience as a head coach when you bring up names.
Well,
like
that was
Steve
only at the
Kerr,
beginning when he
Rivers,
got the job.
And Derek Fisher. It's more for this team with these superstars.
This team.
He doesn't have the experience to handle them and put his foot down like a
They
more
do what they
experienced
want to
coach.
do, man. And I'm saying that can't happen if they're going to win.
JJ saying his hands are tied because of the organization.
And you got
I'm not just saying that. I'm not just saying that because I want to say one thing. Steve Nash not having cachet is crazy talk.
You're being literal. I don't mean it like that.
Not have cachet. Come on, Stephen A.
You're being literal. I don't mean it like that.
You don't think Kyrie, KD, those guys, they respect Steve Nash. When he first came in, they respect him as a coach. They respect his basketball acumen. Okay, but on the organizational side, I'm not saying it's one or another. The question I brought up at the end is the most important question. Who? Who at this point? Who at this point?
At this point,
yes.
listen, Mark Jackson, Jeff Van Gundy, those are two names that pop into my head immediately. Immediately, because what I'm saying is, listen, when I think about Mark Jackson, you know what I think about? I think about the Brooklyn roots. I think about the New York roots. I think about the cachet with the local media and everything, because all of that stuff comes with the job. I think about being in a position where, yo, man, you trying to win? This is what we trying to do. And the public is going to trust you, where they're not going to co-sign on anything just because a guy's a superstar on the basketball court. You got to actually show up to do the job.
A coach is not responsible for getting a player to come to work. A coach is not responsible for getting Kyrie to play. A coach is not responsible for getting Ben Simmons to play. If Steve Nash has a normal season, one normal season, and they get swept in the first round, yeah, there's an argument there.
I think that Steve Nash had a normal season, they could get to the conference finals at the least. At the least, if Steve Nash had a normal season. But how are you going to ensure you're going to get that normal season? You got to have the muscle somewhere to get somebody to capitulate to you instead of it being the other way around.
So good. I let it go as long as I could, but we're up against it. We got to get a break here. Still to come on First Take. No Devin Booker tonight for the Suns. So does that mean they're about to get bounced? He wasn't on the bench last night as the Celtics completed the sweep of his Nets. Our Adrian Wojnarowski reporting that Simmons and his agent Rich Paul sat down with Nets brass and discussed the physical and mental hurdles remaining in his pursuit of return to play, with mental health playing a strong factor. And that Simmons reiterated he did want to play for the Nets, and the team made it clear they want to give him every resource needed to do that. Yesterday, Stephen A., you were very strong on Ben Simmons. Let's flash back. Okay. Your strong stance on Simmons got an emotional response from your friend, Jamie Foxx, who posted a now-deleted video saying that it's completely unfair. Ben Simmons has a family. This man has people that love him, and this man just plays basketball. But to be dragged through the mud like that, this is unfair. And why is it, Stephen A., you only go at basketball players? You are completely mute when it comes to the Tom Bradys and the Aaron Rodgers of the world. You get where I'm going. Stop it, bro. It's out of bounds. Stephen A.,
yeah,
the floor is yours, sir.
You know something? First of all, I'm going to have fun with this segment because Jamie Foxx is a friend. He's somebody that I have profound respect and admiration for. I think he's maybe the greatest talent in the history of Hollywood when you consider his versatility and his range. He and I speak quite often about sports, and I don't quote him, and I wouldn't be talking about him now if he didn't give me permission to do so. So I want everybody to know he and I were on the phone last night because he called me to talk to me about what he said and stuff like that. So we spoke. That's my brother. I love him dearly and the whole bit. But damn it, just like I tell Jamie Foxx on the phone he's wrong, or I tell him to his face that he's wrong, I'm going to tell him on national television he's wrong. That's just the way it goes. I mean, that's what we do. And I would caution everybody to understand Jamie Foxx has no credibility when it comes to sports. You do know why, right?
I know. He's a Cowboys fan.
Because he's a Cowboys fan. He has no credibility. I just want everybody to know that when it comes to sports, the fact that Jamie Foxx is a Cowboy fan, all Cowboy fans, as far as I'm concerned, have no credibility. Zero. Okay, zero. But because he's my boy and I love him to death, I'm going to address what he had to say. Jamie Foxx knows better. He's just highly protective of the black athlete, as he should be, because they deserve our protection, to be quite honest with you, in a lot of situations. That's what this is about. Jamie Foxx knows good and damn well. Ain't got nothing to do with brotherhood to me. I protect brothers all the damn time. Trust you me. It's what I don't say that proves my protection. White folks that I ain't never criticized Tom Brady. I ain't never criticized Aaron Rodgers. Didn't I just finish talking about Steve Kerr? How about Steve Nash? How about Steve Kerr? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. When Tim Tebow was complete 46% of his passes, he works at this network. I ain't going about him. I mean, there's countless white athletes that I call out when necessary. Here's the problem where it gets a bit serious, and this is not about Jamie. Jamie and I just disagree with this point. That's my brother. But it's a big issue that I think needs to be addressed. Because this problem exists within the black community. So I can't talk about, all I'm talking about is black athletes. First of all, that's false. Secondly, I'm only supposed to be complimentary. I'm calling out a Kyrie and a Ben Simmons because of their impact and effect on the black athlete. When you go to the collective bargaining table and they use them as an examples to try to minimize their contribution to players, that's about those players. That's not just about them. That's about the black athlete. If I sit up there and I take a position on Colin Kaepernick because I'm talking about how you didn't necessarily strategize appropriately, I'm saying that I wish you had. I wish that you had embraced the support that everybody threw out there on your behalf when you were being blackballed unfairly by the National Football League, which I've articulated on many, many occasions. But we are talking sports. And your performance on the court or the field of play, that's devoid of race. You do what you do. If you don't perform and you don't get it done, you don't get it done. If you shoot 2 for 20 and you look like straight garbage, I'm supposed to look at your ethnicity and say, well, I'm not going to say anything? No. No. You're supposed to call it. When you sit up there, when you ain't getting the job done, that's what you're supposed to do. Now, when it comes to the personal, that's different. Because there's a lot of things that go on in our lives on a personal level, in our lives from a community perspective that ain't for public consumption. That's different. But what you do on the court or what you do directly to impact the play on the court matters. Kyrie Irving chose to take his individual position and it cost the Nets this season. They are home right now. It ain't even May. I'm going to point that out. Ben Simmons, you quit on LSU. Because people said when you was on the court, your effort was lackadaisical and you got blown out in the NCAA. So we get all of that. You go to Philadelphia and you don't want to show up. It was mental health issues. And then you get to Brooklyn, you smile and suddenly it's not your mental health at all, it's your back. And then when they sit up there and say, well, you're going to be available for game 4 on Friday, and I'm saying game 3 was Saturday. Why would you be available Monday, but you can't be available Saturday? It makes no sense. And I called that out. And I said, he ain't going to play Monday. Watch. And sure enough, he proved it. And then his agent and his family and himself going to show up in Brooklyn. And what is their explanation? It's mental health again. I thought it was his back. See, it's all over the place. What I'm saying is, when you point those things out, and you talk about how egregious or pathetic it is, that's it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing where I'm going to laugh at Jamie Foxx about that. I'm going to laugh at Jamie Foxx about this. My brother Jamie Foxx, did you talk to our boy Charlie Mack about Ben Simmons? Did you talk about that? Because Jamie loves himself some Charlie Mack now. We all love Charlie Mack. Ask Charlie Mack about Ben Simmons. Ask Philadelphia about Ben Simmons. Okay?
Yeah.
They'll tell you about. Did you see that? Did you see that movie Law Abiding Citizen? Did you see that phenomenal job that Jamie Foxx did in Law Abiding Citizen with Gerard Butler? Well, guess what? Guess where that movie was? Philadelphia. He's been there before. Ask him. Ask him how they feel about Ben Simmons. I'm not exaggerating here. This is First Take, baby. I ain't talking to Jamie Foxx right now.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the public. This is First Take, y'all. Personal stuff, none of my business. What you do with your personal life, you ain't gonna hear me talk about nobody's personal life. See no evil, hear no evil. Ain't no, stay out of the police blogs. I ain't got nothing to say. But what you do on the court or the field of play, I don't give a damn if you green. Care what color you are. Your performance is going to be chronicled. And for those that get upset and may not want to talk to me, let me say this. I got friends, I got loved ones. I love most athletes, and they know, the cats that truly, truly know me know how I will look out. But at the end of the day, I don't get paid to talk to you. I get paid to talk about what you do. And that's exactly what the hell I'm going to do. And even the phenomenal, incomparable, great Jamie Foxx, who is my brother, love this man. Anybody, I listen to him all the time. I'm going to say what I need to say. I ain't backtracking one syllable with what the hell I had to say about Ben Simmons. As a matter of fact, Molly, my last comment, I think I have been too kind.
Okay. Let me.
And I'll leave it at that.
Let me just say this before we go to break. I will say you are unbiased in who you talk about subject. Race isn't a factor. And I will also say this, because I have been a part of meetings where other people dodge topics and you do not. So you tackle the uncomfortable conversations that some people choose not to. So I applaud you for that. Kyrie, 100% agree with you. Tom Brady, his example he gave, there was nothing to talk about with Tom Brady. I guess he retired and unretired quickly. Aaron Rodgers, you were actually very critical of this past year based on some of his decision making. Ben Simmons, I'm just going to say, I do side with Jamie. I thought you were a little harsh on Ben Simmons. And again, it's because it's a lot of gray area with the mental health factor and the back issue. Yeah. I mean, most people side with you on that subject, but yesterday on the show, you know, I had pause with you guys, Jay Williams, Tim Legler, all of them, in defense of Ben Simmons. But as far as race and picking and choosing, that's untrue. I've sat up here with you for 6 years.
Jamie don't really mean that. That's my man. Jamie don't really mean it. He's just getting on me, and that's okay. I can take it because he's Jamie. That's my brother. And if he talks, I'm going to listen. Like my man Snoop Dogg, he talks, I'm going to listen. You talk about cats that can get me to pause and say, let me think about this long and hard. The brothers like that, Fat Joe, the whole, I mean, please. I mean, when they talk to me, I'm going to pause and listen because I got love and profound respect. My man Charlie Mack and so many others. We all know what time it is, but in the end, what it comes down to is, yo, if you ain't getting it done, you ain't getting it done, I'm going to say so.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right. Good dialogue.
You on the bench looking like a male model.
Okay, settle down.
It's true.
Settle down. Still to come on First Take. More Ben Simmons. Yeah, let's send it to Philly where the Raptors won't go down that easily. Toronto has now dropped Philly in back-to-back games to crawl back into the series, making it 3-2. Embiid has played but has been affected by that ligament tear in his thumb, while James Harden only able to put up 15 points in 40 minutes played. No team has ever blown a 3-0 advantage and lost the series, but Doc Rivers might be feeling some heat, being the only coach in NBA history to blow 3-1 series leads. We welcome back Kendrick Hawkins. Stephen A., how much pressure is on Doc to win this series?
Immense. I believe if Doc Rivers doesn't win this series, he'll be fired. And I don't think he deserves it. It would tick me off about it, to be quite honest with you. But I've been in Philadelphia and I've covered the NBA long enough to know that where there's smoke, there's fire. If you see these stories percolating, there is a reason for them. And the fact that you hear about D'Antoni, who's always behind the scenes lurking to get another job, and I'm not knocking him from that. It's not a criticism. The man wants to coach. He loves to coach. And if he has an opportunity to be employed, that ain't his fault. But he's always lurking because he's good enough to constantly be in the mix for coaching opportunities that may present themselves. He's good enough to justify that when he comes into your stable, he can win 50 or 60 games for you and make a run in the playoffs. He's good enough to pull that off. Offensively, he's brilliant. So because of that, the fact that he's always lurking, and both Daryl Morey and James Harden are in Philly, and they feel like they had unfinished business in Houston, I think the combination of all those things has Doc Rivers in a world of trouble. He's got to win this series, Perk. It's that simple.
Well, I agree. I agree. The Philadelphia 76ers overall has to win this series, and I think they will. I had them beating the Raptors in 6. But here's the thing. This is not James Harden's team anymore. This is Joel Embiid's team. Right. Okay, so at the end of the day, you got to make sure that Joel Embiid is happy. Nobody gives a damn about James Harden being happy and who he wants to be the coach. It's about who Joel Embiid wants to be the coach, not James Harden. So Daryl Morey is actually walking a fine line and straddling the fence that he might not be wanting to straddle. Because if you're picking and choosing who you want to please out of James Harden and Joel Embiid, right now you better be trying to please Joel Embiid. And if Joel Embiid make a stance, just say hypothetically, that they lose this series, and Joel Embiid says, I want Doc Rivers as my coach, then damn it, Doc Rivers is going to be the coach. They don't care what James Harden and Daryl Morey want D'Antoni. If Joel Embiid say he want Doc, Doc is going to be there next year. But I will
pause, Perk. And I'm asking you to pause, not because of an opinion. I'm not debating you at this moment. We're going to switch gears. I got a question. Who do you believe at this moment in time Joel Embiid would support? Doc Rivers or Daryl Morey?
Doc Rivers.
Okay.
And I'm gonna tell you why.
I'm listening.
Doc Rivers and Joel relationship is like no other. Joel should win the MVP. Joel was able to be the best version of Joel Embiid under Doc Rivers. Who's to say Joel Embiid is going to be the best version of Joel Embiid under Mike D'Antoni? See, that's the thing that we all have to realize. So you bring in Mike D'Antoni, who is he going to cater to? Is he going to cater to James Harden?
He's going to be to James Harden, not to Joel Embiid, and that's a mistake. And that's a mistake.
And that's something that we all have to think about, because think about this. The Philadelphia 76ers, you know this, Stephen A., the fans in Philly, they're no fools. And so at the end of the day, they know what they have in Joel Embiid. Like I said, we're watching the James Harden that's on the decline. We're talking about a guy in Joel Embiid who was in the middle of his prime, start scratching the surface of starting his prime.
The one thing that I will say to end this segment, I get where you're coming from. I hope you're right. But I would say to you, you're kind of spoiled in this respect, Kendrick Perkins. Your teammate was Kevin Garnett. And when you talk about a warrior, a loyalist, that it's like his presence is so profound and so significant. When he speaks, you stand still, because this brother mean business, okay? Kevin Garnett is one thing. Joel Embiid, even in his support of Doc Rivers, is another. If Joel Embiid had that kind of personality, I wouldn't be concerned at all.
Mali.
Let me get in one more commercial break.
10 seconds.
10 seconds, got you.
10 seconds. And even if Doc Rivers do lose this series and they decide to part ways, guess what? He'll just be the coach of the Lakers. Carry on.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it there. So we've had to get on a lot of folks today, Stephen A. We're going to praise someone. Got a little surprise shout out coming up. Everybody just please return. Stay in your seat.